Welcome to 2 Cents Short of a Dollar, the show where we give our 2 cents and keep it 100. We're your host. That's Motiz, and I'm Rue. Some big controversy going around that I want to talk about today. Amanda Serrano, Katie Taylor, right? But it's not just about the result of the fight. Now, they're being heralded as the most watched female boxing fight ever. But someone has something to say about that, and that someone is Clarissa Shields. So Clarissa Shields and Savannah Marshall, I think when they got in the ring together, they did like 2 million views or something like that. Now the numbers on this Katie Taylor, Amanda Serrano 2 are astronomical, right? We're going to get into that in a second. So it's based on the studies we're seeing is somewhere between 50 and 74 million they did, right? But Clarissa Shields is saying, hey, wait a minute. That doesn't really count because you weren't the main event. Now, when Clarissa comes out and say that, and Clarissa has her past and her history we'll get into, but do you agree with her assessment that they were not the main event, so those views do not count for them?
I can't say they don't count. However, context is important, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to lie. Being completely fair, Amanda Serrano and Katie Taylor fight, amazing fight, great fight. But it was, let's be honest, it was carried by the Mike Tyson-Jake Paul fight, if we're being completely honest. Right? Let's say we swap out Katie Taylor and Amanda Serrano with, Clarissa Shields and Savannah in their fight. They probably would have did the same numbers, right? It'd have been, so I think it speaks more to the main event, which is Mike Tyson and Jake Paul, than actually Amanda Serrano and Katie Taylor. I get that part. I get what she's saying with that. In order to break numbers officially, you have to be the main event of the card. Like, people have to buy the pay-per-view because of you. Generally, when people buying pay-per-views, they're doing it for the main event, not necessarily due to the undercard. So I get it. However, right, you can't sit here and tell me, less than 2 million people watched the fight. Like, watched Katie Taylor and Amanda Serrano's fight. I believe more than 2 million watched the fight, right? So if we're talking about who actually watched the fight, those are the number of people who watched the fight. You know what I mean? And if that's the case, did they break that record? You can say they broke that record. You know what I mean? Now, how they did it may not necessarily be the same of how you did it, Clarissa, like just being completely fair. I get that part, but they still had people watching that fight. You know what I mean? So that's kind of how I feel about it. What about you?
All right. One thing I didn't look up that I probably should look up is how many people were watching when Barrios was fighting, right? Because progressively, I'm sure more people start tuning in closer to the main event, right? I'm not going to be oblivious to that. But I do think because of Taylor Serrano won, a lot of people did make sure that they tuned in before the main event to see the co-main event because part one was so, electric. So, I mean, I get it, right? So if they did 50 million, if they did 74 million, yes, a lot of people were just sitting there waiting for Mike Tyson and Jake Paul. But I mean, do you think about what percent, maybe 10% watched it for Katie Taylor and Amanda Serrano?
It's still more than
you know what I'm saying? Because if you do 10% of let's do 50 million here to be conservative, that's still 5 million people watching it. You know what I mean? That's still, if you say, okay, 90% are here for Jake Paul and Mike Tyson, 10% for, you know what I mean? And I don't know if that's the factual number, but 10% of 50 million is still a lot of people. And like you said, they still had to have had it on watching it. You know what I mean? And then, like I said, I do think some people tuned in for this. And of course, I'm a hardcore boxing fan, right? That was the fight that I was there for, right? Not everyone's a hardcore. I'm sure you don't reach that number without a bunch of casuals. You know what I'm saying? But I do think there was a lot of hardcore boxing people like, nah, controversial fight one, but amazing fight of the year candidate. I got to see part two. And it did not disappoint. You know what I mean? So there was a lot of people there to watch that fight as well. You know what I mean? And if I be all the way honest, I think if Clarissa benefited from this, if she was the undercard, the co-main benefited from this, she would want every view to count. I don't think she would make the same argument. But I think anything that Clarissa tends to feel is challenging her status as the number one woman boxer, I think then Yeah. And then no one is saying Katie Taylor or Amanda Serrano is better than you. We're just saying that more people watch their fight than, you know what I mean? But I think anything that she feels that kind of challenges her, she has to come and defend herself some way, somehow, you know? That's why you see her online arguing with Cam and stuff, you know what I mean?
Do you think she's hating?
I don't know if it's hating or if it's coming from a place of insecurity, right? Because when it's on, when you got it on lock and you are, you know, her in this case, I was about to say when you're him, but when you're her in this case, you know what I mean? Like none of that stuff matters to you, you know? I don't think so. So I think it's more so from a place of insecurity, right? There's just, she feels like what she's doing is not hitting home enough with the fans, and she wants it to hit home more. So she has to keep verbally defending herself and making wild accusations. Like, I think I could beat up Keith Thurman and Gennady Golovkin, and it's almost like she's trying to prove herself more just outside of, you know what I mean, with outside of the ring things. I don't know. It's kind of weird, to be honest. I wouldn't call it hating though. I think it's coming from a place of insecurity. How about you?
I'm gonna be honest, man. Clarissa, you gotta stop hating. Nah, but for real, like I do feel like it comes from a place of I get your point. You that was a good point. You kind of, you was on the verge of swaying me, but I do think it comes from a place of hate because her and Amanda kind of been having their back and forth, right? And you don't necessarily come out from the woodworks and complain about the viewership number, even though it does well for women's boxing in general, and you don't try to like provide context in that situation unless you're like salty about it, unless you're really like hating on the situation. And like you said, if she was in that situation, she would absolutely not will say, well, I didn't break the record because I was on the undercard of Jake Paul and Mike Tyson. You know what I mean? She will be like eating that whole thing up. So I do think it comes from a place of hate in the sense of, you know, oh, how they doing those numbers and they're not me. You know what I mean? Or, you know, like you said, it can also be a place of insecurity as well, like maybe a threat to her in some capacity, you know. But like I said before, credit to her, she is right in the sense of the context that's being provided, right? Because I don't know if they'd have broke that record if that whole card changes. You have Katie and Amanda headlining, and then they have, you know, a regular card, right? Like I don't know if they break that 2 million, you know, record, right? But that's not what we're talking about here. We're just talking about the facts, which is the number of people who are watching during the time of them fighting, which was more than the 2 million you had previously broken, right? So if it's great, you know, for boxing, for women's boxing, why not just, you know, give your congratulations or not make a comment, just move on. You know what I mean? That's how I kind of see the situation.
I'm with you there, and I know, you know, Amanda Serrano has been talking about, you know, she wants the fight a third time. If they were to go on their own and be the main event, I today would go on the record and I would put money to bet that they'll do more than 2 million views.
Okay.
And you know, I would like everyone to, you know, clip this video, save it. I don't care if right now, unless we have to wait 5 years or something, but if they were to fight within the next year and they headlined a DAZN card or whatever it was, I believe they'll break that 2 million record.
Okay.
Yeah. It's just it's
You
too
heard it
much
here.
history. It's too much history there. People are too invested. Whether people think Katie won or people think Amanda was robbed, there's just too much. Like they're gonna tune in and watch that. And I think that's how they felt after the first one. But now after the second one, people are going to tune in to see this. But you know, let's see.
Yeah.
I'm not really sure Katie Taylor will take that fight a third time, especially with Amanda saying she wants to do it 12 rounds in 3-minute rounds.
Yeah, she's not going to take that, especially with 3 minutes in the 12 round. You could tell Amanda got the high gas tank, and it just doesn't favor Katie, and the team won't allow that. So they're not going to take that fight. Absolutely not.
Yeah. Well, you know, jump in the comment section. Tell us, what do you think? Has Katie Taylor and Amanda Serrano's record, that Clarissa Shields' record that they broke, do you think that's valid? Do you think it's legitimate, or do you think it's just skewed by the main event and we should put an asterisk next to it? Let us know in the comment section what you think.